There we are. Well, it's great to bring everyone together. Another great day here in sunny Sydney, but we've got people joining us from around the world. We have Karen and Tanya in our nation's capital in Canberra. We've got Raj in South Australia at Adelaide, which is where we will be making the submarines eventually. And we've got Dr. Eric Shaw in Washington, DC. And you've just finished off your summer, Eric, so glad you could join us. Good morning to you
Thanks.
all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today, we're going to be talking about the insider threat and people security and issues around national security as we move forward. But it's great to be joined by the team from MPS People and Security Solutions. We had a fantastic event at the National Press Club in Canberra early this year. And Karen, we had a full house. So you must have had some good topic sessions going on because people are still talking about it. And the video keeps getting big hits on our YouTube channel. So really glad that you can join us and give us some further updates. But MPS People Security Risk Management, your team that you've developed, um, over 35 years of experience. The threats keep changing. We've seen a lot going on with ASIO, and Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO here in Australia, has highlighted some recent activities. But maybe you want to give us some more insights into, where this team come from, the latest work, and share some of your insights. Over to you, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks for having us. So, yes, we've had our company for almost 20 years, and our main focus has been to specialise in personnel security, and that is to support the federal government, but of course now critical infrastructure as well, with the federal government now introducing the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act.
Mm,
So we've seen, I guess what we've seen is such a growth from simply assessing people who are required to access sensitive information within government to our intelligence agencies, realizing for at least the last 5 years that this responsibility needs to be shared. It's not only the responsibility of the federal government, but also every employee and contractor and defence supplier to be the eyes and ears for the foreign intelligence agencies so that we've got more chance of finding those officers that are, really trying to recruit through social media.
mm. And you guys have developed some new courses around insider threat. Did you want to just touch on some of that
Yeah, we
and
have.
how that came to be developed?
Yeah, sure. So for the past 2 years, we've been investing in research and development in particularly insider threat training. So that's awareness training, and as well as developing an intensive insider threat framework, and that is for use by government entities as well as critical infrastructure entities. So what we developed one entire framework and then quickly realized that there were quite a few nuances. So we've now developed a government stream, which really is overseen by the Protective Security Policy Framework, and
Mm.
then the Critical Infrastructure Act for the private stream, so that both have got a pathway to go to understand what their obligations are as they move through the insider threat program.
But this is where the experience kicks in, right? Because you guys have been working with over 20 different government agencies and departments. So, that experience must really kick in to be able to put a program together like this
Yeah,
and then to be able to engage with that community. I guess in lots of ways, you're demonstrating what good looks like.
that's what we're trying to do. That's exactly right. And being able to go in and consult with an agency and for their insider threat practitioner to understand from onboarding to offboarding what a good insider threat framework looks like, and that it's not just a compliance checklist. So it's got to be an ongoing monitoring of employees and contractors and pretty much anyone who touches that organisation.
Yeah. Well, it's all growing. And so, Dr. Shaw, again, you're in DC. I was there last month, and there's certainly a lot going on across the United States at the moment. But
Yeah.
your critical pathway to insider risk. A lot of people here in Australia know about your work, but what's your latest insights? What are you hearing and seeing?
Yeah. Well, we've really benefited over the years from our relationship with the Australian government and related agencies, and they seem to have picked up on the utility of the critical pathway to insider risk. So it's and made substantive contributions to it. In addition, unfortunately for Australia, you guys are often the proving ground experimental lab for adversaries, and they test out ways of penetrating security, particularly in the people area, and then apply them later. So Australia has always been a very fortunate test lab leading edge of issues for us to learn from and collaborate on. And as you know, we've got vital national security and commercial shared interests there, not, besides our sub program and our national defense is very much intertwined. So a lot of collaboration. I think what some of my clients in government and the private sector are worried about now, in addition to the host of other traditional adversaries, are criminal organizations and extremist organizations like sovereign citizens and whatnot, who are sending what my colleagues call clean skins into government agencies, be it Austrac or, and Homeland Security here in the States to penetrate immigration channels, commercial organizations, and certainly the military, and unfortunately also government agencies. So, in addition to the traditional threats, we're seeing huge number of challenges. And then the other thing that's relatively recent is the focus has shifted to online recruitment of our personnel and employees. It's just revolutionized the challenge because there are so many adversaries now that can recruit and penetrate on so many platforms, be it gaming platforms or gambling platforms or a public Discord channel, and then take them into a private Discord channel. And it's just a very busy time.
If we talk just about the critical pathway to insider risk, just on that, how does that differ from other insider threat assessment tools?
Yeah, I think it has become the most broadly accepted because it's the main tool that deals with the entire process as viewed from the organization standpoint, and then explains the journey of the person who doesn't necessarily set out to be an insider over time and how that shift occurs driven by disgruntlement. And it, A, tells a story that makes sense, B, is supported by empirical evidence, is easily understood and adapted by folks assigned to our insider threat programs, and can be operationalized in a lot of tools. So we have critical pathway to insider risk tools like the index that can help an analyst ask the right questions about somebody they may be concerned about, and generate information requirements at the same time, and then score or rate their risk. And once you've done that, you can compare it to the individual themselves over time. Is it getting worse? And we can compare it to known goods and known bads. So how does Mark, who I'm worried about this week, compare to our list of known insider offenders? And so it is finding some utility for those reasons.
Yeah. And as you say, it keeps changing probably by the minute. That's the world we're in at the moment. And there's been a lot of talk around those issues. But I think it's great to be able to have this team here for you all to join us this morning. I mean, training is going to be where it's at. So the ability to have expert advice around the training capability is going to be vital as we all move forward together, particularly across the AUKUS Alliance. But the world's getting smaller every day, so this is really important. Thanks, Dr. Sharpe. Raj, coming in from Adelaide, you're the Chief Technology Officer. You're the head of DTEX's team for investigations and intelligence. Can you tell us a bit more about DTEX and your ongoing work?
Yeah, really nice to be here, Michael, as well. So DTEX, we were founded here in Adelaide, Australia, a little over 25 years ago as well, and we develop a range of monitoring solutions, which largely started in the very kind of technical area of kind of data loss prevention, identifying how users were consuming information, touching information, and potentially how they might steal that information as well. And we evolved. We moved from Australia. We were then headquartered in London, and part of one of our unique approaches to this problem when it comes to monitoring, and I think I see ourselves as a kind of a technical input to Dr. Shaw's framework in terms of being able to identify concerning behaviours and monitor all of the data points that are needed to then have other solutions and risk assessment tools go and determine risk. One of the unique facets that we identified really when we were working in Europe was how we can collect information, but do it in a proportionate way, a way that is proportionate to the risk while still respecting privacy of our employees. And one of the key things with the SOCI Act, it's not just organizations in defense that are impacted, even by some of the changes that are being undertaken by AUKUS. It's a lot of other critical infrastructure organizations that sit across a range of industries where that that fundamental right to employee privacy is really a key concern. But you then also have to be able to monitor, to be able to assess risk, as Dr. Shaw rightly mentioned. There's adversaries that are implanting individuals inside our organizations, and we do need to be able to monitor and ascertain those risks. So our development of a very broad patent on how we pseudo-anonymize data and how we can start to provide those monitoring tool sets that can go up or down depending on the risk that we're seeing inside of an environment has been key. And we're now a US headquartered company. I'd say the center for the planet for insider threat and insider risk is exactly where Dr. Shaw is sitting in Washington, DC. And I think part of our learnings around this problem have really been faceted from a lot of kind of events that have transpired over time, particularly in the US, particularly in US defense with Chelsea Manning and others, where certain mandates around monitoring controls were first established in the US. And I think from an Australian perspective, we're now trying to make sure that from a continuous monitoring, from an audit trail, even from a technical controls perspective, we have capability that is on par with our kind of partners, so that we can share information, and the controls that we put in place allow us to do that in a secure way, that we're each comfortable, that each partner is doing their own bit to secure the information that is proprietary and very sensitive at times.
We've been holding workshops right across the Alliance, and one of our most recent ones was our Secure Information Sharing Summit in DC. We had representatives there from FBI and NCIS and other agencies. And yeah, the threat level is accelerating. It's no surprise to anyone. But the ability to get people in the room and to be able to share knowledge just like we're doing now is going to be really important as we all move forward. You mentioned around people and your own team. How do you see that adjusting over the years? Because you want your team to be comfortable with the technology, don't you?
Oh, 100%. I think we always, start by, I think Dr. Shaw's kind of frames it as, that maladaptive organizational response. It's a lot of times how an organization is either transparent with their end users about what is being monitored, what are the guardrails, rather than kind of treating each individual as a potential insider threat. You're being transparent about what is being done, the reasons why that's being done as well. That can encourage. There's another term that we see often used, is this kind of bi-directional loyalty. The individual's perception of the loyalty of the organization to them is reciprocated in their loyalty to the organization, and that relationship becomes important to get the right response and the right kind of behavior change for those that are truly aren't malicious and they're trying to get their job done. But at the same time, when individuals, maybe even individuals that have been planted inside an organization, the ability to detect those, you have to have those monitoring controls to protect everybody in the organization as well.
Yeah, it's going to be more. I think we'll touch a bit more on that as we go on with the conversation, because I think that's important, is getting people on board, and that shared responsibility too, I think will be.
Definitely.
But Tanya, really glad that you can join us, because you're leading this effort for NPS around the security training program in particular. But your background across federal government work with defence programs and treasury programs and so much more, that experience must really be leading you to really develop this course to its, getting people on board now. What are you hearing and seeing? And social media must play a real role here. How do you go about those sort of things?
Yes, thank you, Michael. I'm happy to be here today with my colleagues. It's a great team that we've put together, an alliance and partnership with Dr. Shaw and DTEX, because insider risk is so involved these days, as we've touched on with social media and the advancements in technology and AI. And we truly believe that, our experience over 35 years of dealing with personnel security risks on the ground has really given us great intelligence to build a broader insider risk program. Aligning with DTEX, there are digital risks, but there are also non-digital risks that we cover in our framework. Also, aligning with Dr. Shaw has been wonderful, because, his CPIR framework and index is, really, really well regarded and embedded in a lot of Australian security practices. But what we've endeavoured to do over the last couple of years is build a framework for organisations, so that from the start to finish of dealing with people in terms of onboarding, monitoring and offboarding, we can really set the organisation up to most of the time mitigate a lot of risks before they actually occur. These really strong governance frameworks that we have in our arsenal of programs and frameworks really help the organisation mitigate a lot of trouble before an insider threat emerges. But we're very grateful to have Dr. Shaw's CPIR framework and index as part of our consulting framework and training.
And that must be a lot of it, though, Karen. For Karen, just going to touch on the routine ability of your program, because you want the staff and the team to feel comfortable in what's going on. And I guess that builds confidence over time. To Tanya's point, the training is vital, but so is the longevity of the effort, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the important thing moving forward in implementing an insider threat framework, it's almost like establishing a whole new team within each entity. And that's always challenging, because change is challenging. But, from establishing a team with an insider threat practitioner, you've got HR involved, you've got legal, you've got IT, and effectively they all have to work together, to ensure that the framework is from onboarding to offboarding is, intensive, and everyone understands their role. What are the reporting procedures? Of course, if top management are unaware of what's going on or how effective or ineffective insider threat training is, they need to have their eyes on it as well. So without support from the top, nothing really gets done.
And it does become a team thing, right? I mean, again, back to Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO. We've seen a lot of media lately around people with their LinkedIn profiles. And as a team, maybe you can support each other and say, do you think that should be on there? Posting about what your security level clearance might be. I think the simple conversations, but if it's not facilitated, perhaps it's not as effective as it should be.
Yeah, that's right. And even with we've got automated insider threat awareness training, and that's for whether you're an employee that has a very strong security background, or you've just stepped through the door for the very first day. It's designed with those sort of things in mind to say, have you thought about what you have posted on social media? Are you talking about your role? Or if you're in a covert location, have you mentioned where you work? I mean, all of this is done with security training, but it's very quickly forgotten. So those are the sort of things that we're trying to, it's really trying to encourage a very, very much an insider threat culture. So that it's not seen if you're sort of whistleblowing, it's not seen as a negative, it's seen as a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tanya, I think I cut you off there before, but if we're talking about the teamwork now, rather than just ticking boxes every year or going through standard procedures, it really does become this team effort. Did you want to explore a bit more about that?
Yeah, it really is a team effort, and Karen touched on it there. It starts with the leadership from the top down. But we approach training from a couple of perspectives. We have training for all employees and contractors across the organisation to raise their understanding of operations on a daily basis, so they know what to look for, they understand when they're being targeted, and they know what to do about it, most importantly. But our newest training is an intensive training program. And I think Karen mentioned at the start that we have a stream for government entities or organisations, and we also have a stream coming for private sector organisations, because there is a slight difference in what they need to comply with from a compliance perspective, and that impacts the framework that they need to set up for the organisation and how that transpires and is implemented in practice. But yeah, we really think, positioning your training towards the legislation or your environment in what you're trying to, prevent in terms of an insider risk materialising is very, very important. Yeah, so we've got a broad set of products on offer for training, and they're all online based with human interaction, so that people get, good opportunities to be able to talk to the experts and understand the material.
It always comes down to people, there's no doubt. And Dr. Shaw, just on that point alone, I mean, to have the right team around you, whether the organization is small or large, must be a real asset to any company to have all these systems and procedures in place. What have you seen?
Well, one thing I like about the MPS training program, Michael, is that it's not here we're the outside experts. Here's what you need, take our advice, see you later. The course is tailored toward a representative of the organization, starting where they are and building out and equipping them to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Sure, you get help, but we'll take you where you are. If you don't have that capability now, well, maybe you've got a workplace violence group. They might be able to adapt their tasks or expand it because they're used to looking at risk and threat. And so it's really great that I think these folks understand how programs evolve over time. And in DC, we've got some pretty advanced programs with, pretty advanced methods. But the core of any program is going to be that multidisciplinary team. We need the inputs from HR, from line managers, anybody listening, and from routine employees. You need ways for them to report, and then have faith that the reporting is going to be handled responsibly and meaningfully versus they're going to be retaliated against, or nothing's going to happen. So what was the point? Or the person our reporting is going to find out and make my life miserable. So just establishing that is rather complex. But there's nothing like sitting around the table with an effective multidisciplinary team where you compare notes on the individual or the group involved, and then help each other, come up and execute a plan. and avoid those problematic organizational responses that you guys spoke about before. Because if you act with incomplete information, or you act too quickly, or you're dependent upon one data source versus others, you can make matters worse and just move people down the pathway rather than mitigate the risk.
It's always better to bring people along the journey, and certainly the workshops that we've been holding across the three nations are really powerful because it just brings people out of their usual environment, whether it's off the factory floor or out of an office environment. They're getting to see other people and ask questions, which is, there's so much change in the world right now, and we want to be able to demonstrate again what good looks like. So these training programs become the benchmark, and so I think what MPS have developed here is outstanding, and we're going to need more of it. But to you, Raj, on that front alone, you want to make sure that you're up with the government's own requirements. And so I understand that DTEX have done a lot to understand the Australian government in particular and programs that are going. But could you tell us a bit more about how important that is to bring people along?
Yeah, and I think part of our SOCI Act and PSPF as well. It's not just the organisations that are identified as kind of systems of national significance and critical infrastructure organisations. It's the full supply chain that are providing capability into those organisations as well. And so, we always say a rising tide lifts all boats. I think part of this for where we see very large organisations able to have the resources to kind of get headcount for insider risk leads and practitioners, and 100% it has to be a multidisciplinary program. But especially for the small organisations, I think what we've done well in our guidance for Australian organisations is having a fundamental understanding of what this problem is and where to get help as well. And so, I think the ability to have technical tools and staff kind of manning the controls in an organization isn't always possible for some of the really small organizations, but some of those small organizations are developing capability which are some of the most sensitive capabilities as well. And so that umbrella across, we've been able to look at what's been done in the past in the UK. We've been able to see some of the advanced kind of programs in the US, take some learnings of that, and I think we've got a very mature approach. So I feel Australia may have been playing catch up, but we're doing it very quickly in quite a mature way. And I think MPS and training has kind of led that pathway to kind of increase maturity across Australia.
As we say, it's we're all stronger together. So it's collaboration is the key driver. So thanks for that, Raj. But Karen, there's so much around critical infrastructure, and we see the news every day, not just here in Australia, but around the world. And I think it's 11, isn't there? 11 critical infrastructure targets that the government have highlighted. Could you tell us a bit more about that and some of the steps that are being taken?
Yeah, so prior to this SOCI Act, there was, I think, 3 critical infrastructure entities that were responsible for taking insider threats seriously. And that was expanded to 11 because really of the world we are now living in. I mean, we're looking at the next possible attack on Australia could well be through our critical infrastructure, and that can have a cascading effect. And the Australian government's taking that very seriously. So if there is an attack on our energy grid, for example, and it could have a cascading effect. You think about hospitals,
Yeah.
the health system, communications in terms of, if defence lose their comms, the whole thing could be a catastrophe. So we've really got to take the SOCI Act seriously, and that's why the Department of Home Affairs decided to make it legislation. And really what they're doing now is, and I guess what we're all trying to do is to ensure that critical infrastructure understands why they need to take this responsibility seriously.
Yep. It's only going to grow, and we all need to be aware of it. So again, this is where I think the program you guys are developing, where it can be a regular training sessions, case studies. Tanya, you might want to touch on some of those case studies, tabletop exercises where we can get people to be more familiar with what's available and how we can support each other.
Yeah, sure, Michael. In our intensive insider threat program, we have 8 modules, and in each of those 8 modules, we have various case studies sprinkled through, but they're also part of our examination for each module in that program. What we've done is really tried to think about the Australian context and our environment here and the types of real world scenarios that insider threat analysts or insider threat practitioners are going to face in their daily jobs. So we've ensured that, we've got a really relevant set of contexts placed in our case studies. We also have awareness training for all employees and contractors, and we have a good range of case studies sprinkled throughout that course to ensure that people know that the training is relevant to them and what they, come across in their daily work lives.
And when we talk about safe channels for people to be able to communicate, can you just expand a bit more on that? Because I think that would be important too. For the workforces are expanding. We're hearing about tens of thousands of new positions that'll be needed just for the submarine program alone with AUKUS. But if you're talking all of Australian industry, to Karen's point around infrastructure, surely we need those safe channels where people can feel free to communicate. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so as Dr. Shaw mentioned, key part of his critical pathway insider risk framework and index is ensuring that the organisation is well placed not to push individuals into, further along that pathway. What organisations really need to do is to be able to put reporting channels and activities in place to support individuals, both the person who may be emerging as an insider threat or people around them who are in the workplace every day with eyes and ears open. We need a very safe environment to be able to help mitigate those risks. And Dr. Shaw's work and all of the empirical evidence that he has behind his tool gives us, really good, strong evidence and understanding that we need to have safe pathways for reporting. Channels, organisations will have multiple channels in place, and it may be just as simple as reporting a concern that you see on the floor to your manager, or your organisation might have an anonymous, online reporting tool that you can use. Generally, it's up to the organisation to take on board those reported concerns and then elevate them to authorities across government. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but the key theme that we understand, from Dr. Shaw's work is that reporting is a very important point in terms of managing insider risk, and how we handle that can help mitigate risks. Dr. Shaw, did you want to add any points to that?
No, I thought that was very well said. I think one traditional reporting of coworkers is highly problematic, and we're working very hard in our security awareness training to make it easier. So, beyond see something, say something, it's things like don't worry alone and prevent somebody from ruining their life. But a couple of ways we're getting around that are making insider threat programs are often making management consultations available to help supervisors work with potentially problematic employees. So this week, I've gotten 2 calls from managers who are worried about employees going down the pathway and want help working with them. And we can consult on a consulting basis, help them do that. A consulting psychologist, a security specialist, an HR specialist. And that can take people off the pathway. But at the same time, it breeds a relationship with the supervisor, who's not going to look at the insider threat program as big brother, peering over their shoulder, but a place they can go for consultation to prevent insider, attacks. And nip it in the bud, mitigate the risk. I've also seen one of the most powerful demonstrations I saw in a relatively small organization, 2,500 people or so, a financial organization, were highly active and embedded HR reps.
Ah,
So they got involved in recruiting people, and then they were embedded with the work team. And we installed a very intrusive monitoring tool at this was a hedge fund. And we would bring them problems, high risk, problematic employees, because they hired very risky people, geniuses, but had their issues.
mm,
And it seemed like over time, every time we brought them a case, they already knew about it.
there you go.
And they were so attuned to those employees that we said, hey, you guys don't really need us for ongoing monitoring. Come to us. We'll help you with investigations and other things. But we actually thought you guys got this covered. So a very talented set of supervisors or HR managers are your first line of defense. And I don't mean the HR manager that's just processing, clerical stuff. I mean the people that it's sort of the old cop on the beat model. I mean, where you know your employees, you've
Yep.
brought them in, you're working with supervisors and or talented supervisors. They're our first line and our first build out, I think, when establishing new insider threat programs.
Yeah, for sure. Karen, can I just congratulate you and Tracy Mitchell for building the business that you've developed now, and to be able to bring world expertise like this around the table is just going to put you in such great stead. I know that from the work that we're doing at the AUKUS Forum. But to Dr. Shaw's point around people and behavioural, prior to COVID, I'd never heard of Zoom. And let alone when we start talking about behavioural attitudes, people sending fake profiles or what might be shared on LinkedIn or Twitter. What have you
Mm,
seen in this time? Because things are changing really fast. And can you believe that COVID's 5 years ago when we kicked that off? Wow.
unbelievable.
Mm,
It does get down to the basics, particularly with social media. And it is, as I said, it is encouraging employees and contractors to just think about what they're doing before they think perhaps first about this could be a good promotion opportunity for me. If
mm,
I put this information about my work online. But it's just so much easier for foreign intelligence agencies now to infiltrate Australian public through social media. It's they're doing it at arm's length. It's less risky. It's low cost
yep.
and it's very difficult. I think it's also for employees and employers to encourage an understanding of social infiltration. So manipulation online is just rife now, not just in Australia but across the world, and it's such an easy way to become a target. So not accepting that friend request or that unusual profile that you're sort of wondering about. It's those basic things that can really make the first step towards what looks good.
Yeah, for sure. But here we have a team for everyone out there joining us today. You can see the people here around the room are world leaders in their field. So the ability for MPS to bring this team together and develop these training programs, I think, is just outstanding. We're going to share a lot more on our LinkedIn page for the AUKUS Forum. The MPS website is outstanding, so we'll be putting links to that as well. But these programs, I encourage everyone to get involved and reach out to myself, and we can connect you to the people that have joined us here today. Raj, can I thank you for joining us from Adelaide? Dr. Shaw coming in from Washington, D.C., and Tanya and Karen in sunny Canberra. It's Friday morning here in Australia, and we're looking forward to a great weekend. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much for
Thanks.
hosting, Michael.
Okay, bye now.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Michael.
you.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.